The reason I think this is probably going to be the hardest challenge is it impacts your people, like your human capital. It impacts your ways of working, right? Your operating model, your rhythm, your cadence of how you work, and it impacts your technology stack. And the guy next to me just keeps on looking over, like proper pinstripe suit, nice shirt, tie, he's got the leather attache case, like full shebang. And I took my headphones out at some point and he looked over at me and he's like, I'm always afraid of the guy in a t-shirt. And I was like, why? And he said, I'm conforming, but you don't give a
Welcome to Shapeshifters, the podcast on a hunt for passionate individuals who are discovering and rediscovering the best ways to transform people and organizations for good. I'm your host, Mike Currian, and it's great to be with you. In this episode, I'm speaking with Dominic Price. Dom is a dad, husband, and futurist. He's a recovering chartered accountant, something I can definitely relate to. He's a one-time tech consultant, and he's genuinely fascinated by human ways of working and teams. He's irreverent, mischievous, and you're going to tell straight away he really cares about doing great work. The episode was recorded just prior to him finishing up 12 years at Atlassian. In this conversation, Dom's going to give you his masterclass in leading persuasive, effective meetings, especially with execs. He's going to tell you his key leadership reminder that he has stuck to his computer. You'll hear why he doesn't think that AI is the next transformation, but why it will be one of the hardest challenges we've faced. And you'll hear some invaluable wisdom on burnout, balance, and life's real KPIs. I found this conversation a lot of fun. I think you're going to love his honest, raw thoughts, while seeing underneath his amazing charisma and confidence that he's got a massive heart. So, let's jump into the conversation.
Welcome to Shapeshifters.
Hola.
Hola.
Welcome to Shapeshifters.
Welcome to Shapeshifters.
Dom, welcome to the podcast.
Mike, I am really looking forward to this conversation. I think we're going to have some fun today.
I have a friend that started at Atlassian a little while ago, and I wonder, is most of the team remote? So are you at home right now?
I'm at home. It's weird. We try not to use the word remote because it changes every day. So my team is distributed, right? So my team is in Germany, US, and India. So whether I'm at home or in the office, it doesn't actually matter. What matters is how do I build connection with them to have the important conversation, which often for me means being at home because I can work different hours. The last stat I saw, between 30 and 35-40% of people on any given day go into one of our offices. So it's not, because people are, is it hybrid? I'm like, no, because there's no requirement. It's not 2 days on, 3 days off. It's not structured in that way. It's, hey, Mike, you're an adult. Do whatever you need to do to get the job done. You're like, what, an adult? Shit, that's controversial.
Wait, so you mean I can actually just be trusted?
Yeah, it's so weird. And then, like, when I trust you, how many layers that adds to you, like good layers that adds to you. Yes. You're like, well, if you trust me, I'm not going to take the piss on expenses. If you trust me, I'm not going to, like, you go the extra mile because trust is reciprocated. It's bizarre. The hard thing I find is I spend half my time outside Atlassian with our biggest customers. And so that's this like shock. It's like cold water therapy because I have my nuances and ways of working and ways of talking, ways of communicating in Atlassian. I'm like, everyone's like this. And then I walk into some random bank or telco and I start speaking and I'm like, why is everyone so shocked? And they're like, fuck, you really speak your mind, don't you? And I was like, what's the alternative? Is the thing I said untrue? And they're like, no, it's just like spicy. And I'm like, I don't even know what that means anymore because my spice and your spice are completely different.
It is interesting though. It's just it's still so constrained. I don't know how long it'll take that culture.
Mate, I had when I flew down to Melbourne last week for an event and I was just sat there on the flight down, minding my own business, headphones in, listening to an average podcast. And the guy next to me just keeps on looking over, like proper pinstripe suit, nice shirt, tie, he's got the leather attache case, like full shebang. And I took my headphones out at some point and he looked over at me and he's like, I'm always afraid of the guy in a t-shirt. And I was like, why? And he said, I'm conforming, but you don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, he said, have you ever thought about how much of a message you wearing a t-shirt in a boardroom would convey? And I was like,
yes.
No, I honestly haven't thought about that. But now you've planted that seed in my head. that's like the flip. I thought I was turning up and not fitting in. And what you're saying is by not caring about that, that's some kind of flex. I was like, I'm just wearing a t-shirt because it's more comfortable. I'm shit at ironing. Like, there's not that many thought processes going in my head. But it's fascinating that that flip has occurred.
But do you know what I think's so interesting is often these like unexpected intimidation factors or unexpected reversals. Because you're like, I'm actually feeling more comfortable. I'm thinking about it less.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't even on my mind. And then they're hypersensitive, hyper aware, trying to like work it all out. And you're like, no. You don't need to work it all out.
Well, that common thread of when someone tries to work out your logic and you're like, oh, there isn't any. I haven't thought this through as much as you are analysing me. I just do the things I do and I don't even think about them. But the depth of your analysis is really impressive.
Yes. Yeah. And so here we are, where some of us get to be free and a whole bunch are still in the process of trying to let go. Yeah. Or they're trapped. Because I won't blame everybody. Sometimes the culture is... Can you actually tell me what percentage of like people you speak to externally, if we're running with this metaphor, how many are still just deep in a culture where they're really trapped?
I don't think it's actually that many. I think it's actually a little bit more subtle than that. I think some of it is learned behavior. There's learned behavior, which is I feel trapped, but you're like, are you? Yeah. And then the ones that always throw me a bit of a curveball are the ones who are like senior leaders in an organization. They've been there for 10 years and they tell me how bad it is. And I'm like, if I'm to map out that equation, you created that culture. So how is it you're whinging about the thing that you co-created? And they don't feel like that, oh no, I'm a passenger to it. And I'm like, nah, your seniority, that long tenure, you co-created that. So it's funny. I feel like most leaders I work with have got more agency than they realize, but it's a lot easier to play the victim.
Yes. Because then you don't have to be responsible.
It's like, it happened to me. This woe is me. And also, like, I think some of it's quite weirdly, like, meta, quite cultural. Like, if I think about whenever I go back to the UK, like, I'm from the north of England. In the north of England, you're not meant to like your job. So the idea is you clock in on a Monday, clock out after work, you go to the pub, you drink moderately during the week, then Friday night's your big binge. And your job is to whinge about how bad your work is, right? Because it's always unfair and it's unjust and it's terrible. So whenever I fly back and I'm like, it's really awkward. I quite like my job. It's like, what the I'm like, I actually, well, sorry, like really guilty. Like
I'm happy.
And then I'm like, and here's the agency I've got to do the things I want to do. And it's not that I love 100% of my job. There's parts of it that are annoying. That's just human nature. But on the whole, at an aggregate level, I do. And when I explain that, people are like, no, that's not a concept. So that it's not that doesn't exist. It's just not acknowledged in that environment.
So interesting. And so how did you end up in Australia?
I was sat having, I'd done 3 years at Deloitte in London. And I was sat having sushi with my boss at the time, a wonderful gentleman by the name of Ravi Joshi. And Ravi was like, hey, I think you're thinking of leaving and I don't think you should leave. And I was like, funny you mentioned that. I am thinking of leaving, but I don't know what I want to go and do. And each job I looked at was like, nothing got fire in my belly. So I felt like I didn't realize at the time, but I was running away from something rather than running to something. Like, none of that excited me. Anyway, we had sushi, we had a chat. He's like, I want to explore something on the weekend and I'll come back to you next week. I was like, oh, good. So the next week he's like, hey, I've made some calls. I think you should try doing the same job you're doing here, but do it somewhere else. So everything else the same, just a different location, and see if that gives you the learning curve you want. And I'm like, I didn't even think of that as a possibility. I just thought if you didn't like what you did, you changed it. Turns out I was trying to change the wrong things. Good life lesson there. But
also back to Friday at the pub. You were trained to do that.
Trained to do that, right? It's indoctrinated. So he comes in the next week and he's like, right, New York or Sydney? And I was like, are we going on holiday, Ravi? I don't think we're that close. He's like, no, your job that you're doing right now in Deloitte in London exists in New York and Sydney.
Yeah.
And I thought New York felt too much like London, so I'd go to Sydney. And the idea was I'd go for a year and a half. I'd grow my hair out. That's worked really well. I'd get fit. Not done that yet. I'd learn to surf. And after 18 months, I'd return bronzed to England and just be like, yeah, I'm super cool. I'm a surfer now. And I kind of got to Australia. I was like, I quite like it here. So there was never a plan to stay. I never had a mood board with Sydney on it. I never had this. I never watched Australian shows and like, I hark after those times. I don't surf, right? I don't fit into that equation. But something intangible about it when I got here, I'm like, yeah, this works. So 22 years later, I'm still here.
I love it. And that's sort of my story. I didn't get the agency of choosing myself, but my dad had this inclination that we were going to pack up from Southern California and we were moving somewhere far away. And New Zealand ended up being that place. And 24 years later, still here. And so I'm a man of no country, though, because when people meet me, how long are you visiting for?
Yeah.
I've been here most of my life. I think I'm going to stay a bit longer.
Mate, I'm with you. So there's a hard trigger for me, and because my wife's also English, but when we had the kids, we're like, are they Aussie? And we're like, well, they are, because they're born in Australia and they'll probably only ever live in Australia. But they're surrounded by very English things, right? They've got English parents. We've got English friends. We've also got Aussie friends. But I'm like, it's not like we're in the outback. Like we're in Manly. Like it's hardly like challenging Australian environment. But then I was like, hang on, what does that make? What does that make us? Because I'm like, well, I'm 47 now. I've been here for 22 years. Is there a time when that ticks over when I feel more Australian? Because so much of my roots and my heritage is still English. I've not got hatred for that. I've not run away from it. But it's also not. It's quite a foreign concept because it's familiar, but that's not the life I live.
Yes, this is the same as I feel.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy for somebody to assume my identity is American. But I'm like, actually, I've moved a long way from that now.
Yeah. Yeah, the assumption bit. It's the assumption bit. It's like now, like once someone hears that first twang, they fill in all the empty gaps with assumptions. You're like, actually, about 3/4 of those are untrue. Like I know more sheep than I know people. Like it's the thing. But no one's gonna tap into that without being curious first about who you are and your background.
Yeah. How often do you meet somebody that you're like, okay, this is a curious person? Because something we've learned in our business is a lot of people, that's not actually a place they love to be. They love executing. They love running with something that's pre-established. But there is something different about enjoying the whys and the ambiguity.
Yeah. The thing I've started to focus on recently is polarity. So instead of curiosity, I'm like, who are the people in my life that can hold two opposing views in their head at the same time?
Yes.
That's really attractive, right? So they can go, I think this, but that also might be true. And I'm like, oh, right, that's getting the arousal muscle going of like, tell me more about that. Like, how do you compare those two? That's a conversation. Where I get turned off is conversion. When someone's like, I'm curious about this thing, this singular thing, and I'm going to convert you to my belief because I've been so curious about it. I'm now right, and I'm like, nah. And so what I've realized is I don't want to engage in that because conversion I don't find interesting, but open conversation and exploration that is now. You can call it. I still call it curious. I've got a post-it note on my screen here that says "less furious, more curious." Because I've realized that when I get short-tempered and busy and run down or distracted, I don't get curious. I get furious. Mike, where's that thing? I told you to do it. Like, we spoke about this on Monday. And instead of being like, what's happening with you? Where's that up to? What have you learned? I'm like, why is it not done? Right? So I know personally furious can trump my curious quite easily. So I've got that on a post-it note to just remind me, like, not to fall into that trap.
Yeah, and I think all sorts of wonderful things I've noticed in myself come out of when I'm curious. Why are they being so pushy about that opinion?
Yeah.
Why are they having so much emotion to this decision?
Yeah. What just what's going on? Just the turning a statement into a question is the simplest form. And I use that with myself and my team all the time. Like we were talking about something last week, and it's a really hard thing we're talking about. And instead of going down that path of solution mode, I was like, just imagine if we had to do it, how might we?
Yeah.
and someone was like, well, if we had to, and suddenly you're like, oh my God, the whole mood, the whole vibe changed.
Yeah. Everybody's all of a sudden lets go of their clenched fists and goes, okay. Well, if I love that. If I had to. And suddenly you go from, but it won't work. Because the whole thing was, we've done this before, it won't work. And I'm like, okay, potentially true. But if we had to, and we wanted to make it work, and the deadline's fixed, by the way, but there was no recourse for how scrappy and random we want it to be, how might we? And I was like, well, in that case, right? And all that creativity came out.
Yes. But it's fascinating how, I think if we'd stood there and said, hey, let's all be more creative, that wouldn't have happened, right? So it's not, it's like empathy. I always say to people, like, the more you say the word empathy and vulnerability, the less you are. Because they're not words that you say, they're actions, right? Whenever I hear a leader go, I'm going to be vulnerable now, I'm like, you're probably not. If you've had to announce it, you're probably not.
I love that. It's so true. All right, I'm going to take us back a few steps. There's a way to answer this question where you'll think about it a lot. I'm kind of more interested in the fast answer, and I'm getting a sense that Dom's going to be good at fast answers anyways. But 3 words that describe Dominic Price.
Irreverent, energetic, and frustrated.
And what are you frustrated about right now?
Everything. I'm constantly frustrated. So I have this tension between not caring and caring, which always leads to this underlying frustration, right? So I like the perception that I don't care, because it enables me, it can form a superpower to go, I'm just going to be me, and I'm going to get on with stuff and joyful and confident in my own skin and all that jazz. And then you're like, well, I'm human, of course I care, right? And then, but it's like, feels like this violent swing. And that violent swing causes frustration because you don't get answers. And I'm quite comfortable in ambiguity, but every now and then you're like, it's nice to have, you used the word foundation before. Sometimes it's nice to have these little foundations, and the swing from I don't care to I do care to I don't care is part of who I am. And so I don't want to fight it, but I also want to be honest that it does lead to a lot of underlying frustration.
Yeah.
It's like an example. Am I ambitious? Yeah. Like most of my friends will say I'm really ambitious. But then ambition to me would be like CEO or running my own company. Like, so like, here's the thing, but I'm like, actually right now, the balance I have with the work I do, I'm being a good partner to my wife, I'm being a good dad to the kids. I'm like, okay, so that feels like a good balance, but does that mean I'm not ambitious anymore? Do I need comfy slippers? Am I relaxing on a comfy chair now? I'm not. But it's this violent, like, feels like a violent swing of again, the polarity of voices in the head. The underlying emotion that leaves me with is frustration, because you don't get answers, right? You get movement, but not answers.
Yeah. My version is interesting, because I was going to say, I wonder if there's a superpower in here for you around this frustration. But I wonder if this lands at all. I have a lot of strengths that are just full, insatiable curiosity, learning, rabbit holes. And then if I was using strength finder language, my 5th strength is responsibility. And it's a complete ugly duckling, because I'm off in the clouds, imagining things and just in these wonderful worlds. And then responsibility is just always nagging me.
Does it work like an anchor though? Like, is it? Because anchors can be both positive and negative. Like, some anchors I find are like really grounding. Other anchors I'm like, bugger off. Like, you're stopping me making progress.
Well, I think it's a bit like your frustration. And this is why I related to it, is because it is my tether.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't want to be tethered. It's just like, I was having so much fun. And now you're like, okay, yeah, I do need to get that thing done. Or like, no, I think we could ideate more here. And it's just like, no, actually, the ideas you have are more than good enough. I was like, I know, but that part sucks. I hate doing that part. I hate the doing it part. Let me just play. And so it's that funny tension.
Is that not part of, I'm always, again, curious, we'll ever use the word a lot probably, but I'm always curious here that, is that just part of the balance of life?
Well, it is, but I feel really distressed by it. Like it just sucks. It feels like it sucks all the time. And maybe you're right. Maybe I'm just naming real life.
It's more of an acceptance. No, but I'm a great starter. I'm a terrible finisher, right? So Like occasionally I'll look at stuff and go, God, if only I'd finished that. Or I get frustrated because I start a document and I share it out, people critique it, and I'm like, you're critiquing it because the pixels aren't perfect, not because of the content. So I like to share raw stuff. You want me to send finished stuff, but I'm not a finisher. That's going to take me forever. I'm not going to do it. Someone else can do it. Someone else finishes it and then gets the credit, and I'm furious. Right?
Yeah, it's so familiar.
Like, am I ever going to be a good finisher, or do I just acknowledge that there's a role for starters, and therefore I don't get the credit for finishing it? I just need to accept to be okay with that, but then call out what is the recognition I deserve for starting, right? And that example, I probably got 10 of those in my career, and I'm like, I need to be okay that my DNA makes me perform 9 out of 10 in this environment, 2 out of 10 here. Do I want to get better at the 2 out of 10? And if I do, I accept it's only ever going to be a 3. It's never going to be a 9 because it's just not in my core skill.
What are the things where you're like, yeah, this is where I contribute a lot to the team. This is where the team draws on me. Like, what are your superpowers?
I have an innate ability to walk into a room with a group of very busy, distracted, intelligent senior executives. I have an ability to make them warm really quickly and just loosen up a little bit, take the edges off.
Yes.
I have an ability to make them laugh. I have an ability to make them share and feel comfortable sharing. And I have an ability to make them realize that the way they're working is wrong and they need to do it better without ever feeling threatened. It manifests in very different forms. I do keynotes, I do workshops, I do exec sessions. Like, here's all the things that I do. Essentially, what I'm trying to do is to say, hey, I've got some knowledge and wisdom. I'm going to share some of that as examples to make you feel like you're not alone, because you're not alone. You're then going to share yours. I'm going to help you interpret them, because it's not that you did something bad. It's that something bad happened and you were there. And in interpreting them, we can find a better way of doing it. So when we have this scenario again, how do we do it better? And I'm going to call BS on that so early and so abruptly, but ideally not in a way that experiences organ rejection. So in the last 8 years, I've had organ rejection once, and I'm okay with that. Like, I've got to push the boundaries. And the one time it happened, I was like, this is happening. The room is not happy. The room is not warm. The room is very negative and very defensive. I got it wrong. And I'm okay with that. That's a good statistic. But for me, that challenge is, if I leave you with mediocrity, thinking that you're fine, I failed. If I leave you feeling doom and gloom, like you can't do anything, I failed. And somewhere in the middle is you going, the way we did it wasn't right. There's a better way, and I feel confident that I can do it. The gift I leave is some level of agency that you can work your way through this. And I'm here to help and amplify, but I'm not going to do it for you. And that's essentially how you'd name that as a superpower, I don't know. But when I get deployed doing that, you see the value prop completely change. Right. And then I see, how am I pulling these people in and getting them to contribute in a way that's safe? That is essentially what I do. And it's super valuable because others aren't doing it. It's the scarcity that makes it valuable. I don't know if it's the skill set itself that's like revolutionary. It's the very quick outcome you get to with a group of execs who are like, damn, that accelerated something that was going to take a while otherwise.
So you said a couple interesting words. I mean, it's just leadership in one regard, what I'm hearing you say, but it's quite interesting. It's almost like facilitating, because you're bringing something out of a group. Yeah. You're leading a group. It sounds like it's very time bound. Like you've got this fixed period of time.
Always time bound. Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's time pressure. So there's an interesting aspect to that. I feel like you must do actually quite well under a bit of time pressure, because
I don't feel it.
No, exactly. Exactly. Don't feel it.
Constraint-based innovation doesn't faze me. I'm like, okay, it's actually easier. You're like, cool, I've got half an hour with these people. Let's run. Like, it's not, I've got 30 days, let's ease into it. It's like, I've got 30 minutes. Like, and in those 30 minutes, I want to walk away knowing I've made meaningful impact, but my measure of success is, do you feel that? So a younger version of me used to measure my performance, and then I realized that was non-consequential. Right? It's not my performance that matters. It's like, do you feel? How did you react? Like, how predisposed do you feel now to take action? And then what I've learned along the way is that the more serious I am in that approach, the less outcomes I achieve. And the more playful I am, the more outcomes I achieve.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So you talked about like knowing, just then you alluded to like kind of, you can feel the momentum. You kind of know that you're heading in the right direction. Are there like particular, go into that a bit further for me. Like, what is that feedback loop for you? What are the things you're noticing in an executive when you know you have them? Or when you know that they're tracking?
Yeah. So I'm looking for, I ignore, there's basically 3 signals I'm looking for, right? But I ignore the zeros because the zeros are just noise. So I'm looking for the -1s and the +1s. The +1s are leaning in. They're smiling, eyes open, they're leaning in, they're involved. You can see they want to ask a question. You can sense that curiosity, again, body language, their tone, the way they phrase something, even the way they introduce themselves, like rapidly around the room. And you're like, hi, I'm Mike. I look after procurement. Okay, Mike's going to be a problem in this session. I need to bring, Mike has no mojo, right?
Are you then focusing on Mike?
I'm going to bring Mike in.
Yes.
It's not focus. It's, I want to bring Mike in, and my sense is Mike is low mojo. So it's not, I can't drag Mike in because he knows he's meant to be here and he's physically turned up. So he's kind of willing, he's just lost the fire in his belly. So I need to just reignite Mike's fire, right? And so it could be provocation, it could be a truism. That often works well. I'm like, Mike, been dealing with a company similar to this. You know, the person in your position was struggling with the following 3 things. And you're like, you got me.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Mike goes from grumpy to bloody hell another session to, hang on, this one might be a bit different.
Yeah, you might have something here for me.
Yeah. But what I'm looking for, and this is actually, I've tried to train some of our sales teams on this, the -1 and the +1. So the +1, the lean in's fine. The -1 is they're on the phone, right? They're on the laptop, they're heavily distracted. You can tell the eyes aren't there. They're not making that sort of contact and engagement. And with them, it's normally me trying to plant curiosity in them, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a senior leader I was working with recently, and I just called them out. I didn't call out their action because that's going to just close them down even more. I'm like, hey, what does this session have to give you? When you walk out, you're like, that's the best session I've had this week.
Yes.
Give me the 2 or 3 things. Because I'm like, once you've articulated those, you're in. Because now you've said it, you're now holding me accountable. We've created a game where you think you're setting me a challenge. I'm like, bring it on, let's do it. And I'm like, cool, I reckon we can do 2 of those 3.
Yes.
Are you willing to contribute to help me get to them? Yeah, cool. All right, let's do it. Right?
That's so interesting because all of a sudden they're set up to go, I'm going to watch now.
Yeah.
Because I want to see if you follow
100%,
through.
100%. And actually, if they're, I actually worked this out a few years ago. If their only desire is to watch me fail, they're still engaged. I'll take that, right? Yes. But if their desire is, he's failed already, so I'm just going to get this email done, and there's no value in me from that. So the harshest I've been there is in a session where I was like, I don't believe anyone needs their laptop for this session. And so if you do need to do anything on your laptop, on your phone, I'm going to ask you to excuse yourself from the room for the benefit of the people that are contributing. And there was this like, everyone looking at each other and very slow. And anyway, so everyone's kind of shuts the laptop. This one exec closed the laptop, but just left it a little bit open. And I was like, I called it out. I just, again, joke, humor goes a long way. I'm like, if you try and look at an email, that's more obvious because you're going to have to go sideways. Like you've not made it. Like if you want to do it, maybe just like pop the phone. And everyone kind of had the chuckle. It's like, fine. It's like, there you go. That last edge didn't hurt, did it? And I said, nothing important will happen on your email in the next time.
Yes.
Or your Slack, honestly. And so again, just bringing a little bit of like humor through and then straight back, like, these are the 3 things we want to cover. Again, message checking. Is that what you think we're here for? Mike, you said before, does that cover? So it's constantly just checking, but looking for the ones, how do they help me and amplify me? And looking for the -1s, how do I bring them in?
It's so interesting you describing that need for people to be present. And it's such a bizarre thing we trick ourselves into doing, thinking that keeping some sort of tab on the latest update is going to make a difference. And it's just like a conversation that you're present in for 30 minutes, maybe an hour. There's exponential potential. Yeah. And it's so crazy that we can't, like, we're such funny creatures that we can't get our heads around like an hour of me really being here is going to be so much more valuable than any sort of nannying or babysitting I can do to my notifications.
I think, Mike, it's like this game of corporate whack-a-mole. It's like, there's almost a lot of, I'm gonna say
why are people more rewarded for doing the whack-a-mole?
They're more recognized. Like, and I think the currency of immediate gratification has got too high. If I'm an exec and I ping you, you respond, right? That's never said out loud. But if that's the assumption, what you're actually saying is, my random ping to you is more important than our biggest strategic initiative. That's what you're asked. And they're like, oh, no, I'm not saying that. No, you are. Because if you expect an instant response, you're saying, if I'm stack ranking initiatives, the number one strategy for this company is responding to a C-suite exec that's got a need for a dashboard or a random report or a question they can't answer. And I don't think that's true, but that's the behavior you're displaying. So I think the dissonance is the things we say we do versus the behaviors we have.
Yeah.
Right? Just, I had a leader recently, it's like, our organization is all about trust, frontline leaders, we trust them, but like spouted out all the right stuff. They book a workshop and I walk in, I'm like, there's a cast of like 50 in here. My immediate radar is like, this is too many, but I'm like, again, be curious, why is there too many? And like the third person introduced themselves, they're like, I'm their boss and they're. And I'm like, why which one of the three of you do I need? I don't need three people in the chain of command. Which one of you has the agency or the accountability to make the call of what we're discussing today? And then all three of them look at each other. I'm like, okay, so clearly what you said you had as a set of behaviors, right, or aspirations even, is quite different than the reality. So I'm like, cool, you talk amongst yourselves, and when we've gone around the room, I only want one of you left here, whichever one's going to contribute. I don't feel like I need three of you, because three isn't more than one in that situation. It's less fidelity.
And so another word you actually said a few times was keeping the space safe. So that psychological safety element.
Yeah.
What are your key, if you were to try and name sort of the foundational things you're trying to do when you're trying to create safety, what do you think some of those are?
It varies, but there is like a bit of a playbook there. So most of the sessions I'm running are with external people. And all I have to do is to put myself in their shoes. Here's a guy from another company. He's probably trying to sell me something, because everyone else who walks in this room, whether subtle or not, is trying to flog me something. And so I'm like, I need to allay their fears early on. I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm honestly not. And actually, I'm here to help you. So what I do is I go first. So I'm like, I want to share another customer example of how I've helped them, or an organization similar to yours but different. And by the way, these are the top 3 or 4 things that they're struggling with. Like, once we got to the end of the session, do any of those resonate? And I know 2, maybe 3, or maybe all 4, right? And so it just like lightens the room to go, we're all human. None of us have got our shit together. Everyone's got stuff going on. And by the way, I am not going to talk about best practices in this session, because I don't believe they exist. They don't exist. They're fallacy. There's better practices and there's ways that you work. And I want to help you be the best version of yourself. I don't think you should be copying Spotify or Meta or Google, because you're not them. So do the best version of you in your industry, your space. How might that look? And suddenly getting them involved and engaged. So telling them I don't have the answers helps sort of bring that vulnerability in. Giving other examples is like, well, okay, this guy's willing to share, and he's not all rose-tinted glasses. He's shared 3 things that go wrong and 3 things that go right. So he's quite rounded. Yeah. He's not trying to sell me anything. This isn't a win infomercial where I buy a sham wow and I start cleaning the caravan at the end of it. So it's not that. So you know what? I'm going to lean in a little bit. And so all I'm looking for in the first 5 or 7 minutes is the first lean in, right? It's not at the end of the workshop. I do not judge myself at the end. I judge myself 6 minutes in. Are they more in or more out? And if they're 1 degree more in, brilliant. I need to give you another degree and another and another, right? And so it's actually quite slow progress, but by the end of it, they're fully sharing. So it's weird that I think people see psychological safety as like binary, like, do you have it, yes or no? There's a colleague I know who like tests for psychological safety at the start of the workshop. And I'm like, once you've done that and people say they haven't, what are you doing? I assume we haven't got it and I have to build it. You're calling it out, which is bold and brave. You now then need to do something to activate that before you even start the workshop. So inadvertently, you might just end up getting to the end and going, we built psychological safety, but we didn't solve any of the pressing problems we have. Feels like a bit of a miss. Like a nice gift, but not the one I wanted. So I'm like, I just see it as part of that role is, how do I make people feel 1 degree more comfortable every 5 minutes? While still being willing to call bullshit pretty loudly and proudly early on, because I actually think that is a builder of psychological safety. Me calling out the exec saying, laptop, that actually built psychological safety. Now people go, controversial. That built safety, because I'm like, I'm not here to take passengers, right? I'm here to do this properly, and I want you all to be present and participate. And if you're not, leave the room. That sets an expectation that you're here or you're not. And actually that builds that safety to go, oh, this guy's not messing around. Like, this is a real workshop. Not serious, I'm not suited, I'm not yelling, right? But in a playful way, but it's like, sets that tone.
And you're just showing that you're intentionally leading. And I think what's also interesting is there's a bunch of other things that get named in these funny little acts. You may be hierarchically high, but right now I'm asking you to actually be part of the table.
Yeah.
And also like, he's asking somebody important to lean in. And so it does create this sense for the rest of the group of going, oh, he's helping us be equals here. Yeah. I just think there's so many interesting things that happen in a small moment.
Yeah. And I think over time, what I've got more comfortable with is, I don't think I've ever been a perfectionist, but in a workshop is you can't be a perfectionist. Like it's not every single person needs to be leaning in 100% and like all those requirements you'd never start.
But those were the zeros you were describing. Zeros are okay. Yeah.
Zeros are okay. There's going to be a few people sit on the fence. I'm like, that's fine. That's all good. Like, and you do you, but I'm like, I want to listen for those signals from the detractor or the attractor and find a way of moving them. And you'll move wherever you move. Hopefully we're all moving in the same direction. But they're the ones I need to call out.
The Shapeshifters podcast is brought to you by Makeshapes, group learning delivery for the modern workplace. Makeshapes is a digital platform designed specifically to help large and complex organizations deliver critical talent and transformation initiatives at scale. Makeshapes enables delivery of meaningful group learning experiences that are not reliant on an army of facilitators, so you can reach everyone quickly and consistently. Ready to transform learning and development delivery? Visit makeshapes.com and book in a demo. And if you mention that you heard about Makeshapes on the Shapeshifters podcast, you can get 20% off your first year.
If we painted a picture, right now, I have no sense of what your job even really looks like. What are the key elements in a week for Dom?
Essentially, at an aggregate level, my job's made up of 3 components. And I feel like if you were to draw a Venn diagram, I think they actually complement each other really quite well. One part is in Atlassian, helping us scale, right? So my team, we do little bits with our teams. We parachute in and help our teams, mainly around helping them be better at how they do teamwork, right? And we do that because we want to practice what we then go and preach, right? If I've not got that lived experience, I don't feel authentic doing the second part of the job, which is getting on stage or podcasts or events and telling the story of what we've learned. So we have a belief at Atlassian that if we land on something decent through an exploration or experimentation, we should just share that with the world, right?
And it's like team playbooks. We have playbooks an example of that.
And there's a whole of thought leadership and papers and examples and templates for like, if we land on something and it works more often than not for the majority of the team, we're just going to share it with you, right? And the more we can enable you, like knowledge isn't power. So the application of that knowledge is power, and that's on you, not on me. So me sharing it is not a loss or a creation of value. We go and tell that story on stage. An example right now, my colleague Sven, based in Germany, he's our kind of AI guru. So he's helping a lot of our internal teams play with that. He's helping some of our customers play with it. Then he goes and stands on stage and says, hey, imagine a world where AI agents are your teammates. What does that look like? How do we change how we feel and act and behave and work? Like he's exploring that as it's going to happen. How do I help prepare you with that? Right. So the second third is like, you'd probably call it evangelism or whatever, like out on stage is telling the story.
Yes.
The bit I enjoy the most is that the middle third, right? Which is the one that's talked about the least, which is where one of our customers, existing or future, goes, something you just said resonated with me. You sparked, you triggered me. We need your help because we're in a mess. Can you come and do the thing that you said you do? Can you come and do that with us? And we're like, hell yeah, because that's the real story. So what I learned a few years ago was exploring and experimenting with Atlassian's easy. We've got values, we've got founders, we've got things that just lend itself to that. We can do that with our eyes closed. Doing that in a 200-year-old bank with 50,000 employees, I'm like, oh. So what I've realized is I'm quite sick, right? I love nothing more than a thankless challenge. So I spent a week down in Canberra late last year with government agencies going, here's how we see modern work and the future of work, and I believe we can help you. And they're like, we are beyond help. And I'm like, no, like, I know government agencies are highly bureaucratic and political. I think, I'm not saying copy it. I think there's some sentiment or spirit in this. Like, imagine if we could invest the 600,000 civil servants, the employees of the private sector, in this, how amazing that would be. And they're like, oh, sod it. Like, let's give it a try, right? So we start to explore with that. So that third is me going sleeves up, in with a customer, and that can be anything from sales. So I work a lot with our sales teams who are like, we have a set of execs, they don't know what the future of work looks like. Can you come and help paint a picture and do a workshop? Because in 6, 9, 12 months, we think we might sell them some software, but we need to build a trusted relationship around what, not the features of the product, but what the product does, right?
Yes.
Our product helps you do better teamwork. Me showing the features of that ain't going to cut it. So how do I talk about the environment, the people, the practice, the leadership styles that are better for modern day teamwork? So that customer side is everything from like sales. Most of it is activation, right? It's normally a LinkedIn, right, direct message, and it flashes up and I'm like, oh, where are you? Oh, fascinating. They're like, hey, so like off the record, here's something that's going on right now. And by the way, like the narrative goes, I had an example of this late last year. A CTO for a large organization said, we've had all of the big four consultants through a revolving door in the last 10 years. They've charged us between $20 and $40 million each, and we are left with a lot of PowerPoint slides and not much transformation. So I can't willingly, hand on heart, sign up for another transformation, except my company really needs to transform. So can you come and do that? And I'm like, let's have a chat. Like, no promises, but also I'm not asking you to sign an 18-month contract with me for $20 million. I'm saying, get your people in a ring, give me a chai latte, and let's have a chat. Like, let's just, and if there's value there, we'll have a second chat. And if there's not, go on your merry way. Like, it's not cost me anything. But how do we build that progressive delivery of value? And how do we get you to unleash your potential of your teams? Because if you do that, everyone wins.
What I like, though, is I can see the flywheel between the three things you do, because you're dog fooding it internally. You're sharing about your successes. People get to hear about those and identify where they need that. And the whole thing goes around. I would dig in further here, but I'm going to send us back to something you said earlier. You brought up the almighty future of work. And I guess I have two questions. As it stands today, where do you see, or what do you see the future of work being? And how quickly is that definition changing at the moment as these new revelations come?
I mean, you can answer that so many different ways, because if you zone into the right now, it feels massively chaotic, huge, steep learning curve, but like all that jazz. But then I kind of take a step back and I'm like, I remember all the hype around the internet. I'm like, oh my God, what's your internet strategy? Like, no one talks about that anymore. That just wasn't a thing. So you look at all that fanfare, and in the immediate moment, it felt like a lot. But when you take a step back and look at the data over a longer period of time, I don't know that it is. And so my stance on this is AI is transformative. I don't think it's a transformation. And that's really technically controversial in market right now. Everyone's trying to sell the transformation. Mike, your company, where's your AI strategy? I'll sell your transformation. Here's what you look like in 18 months. Job done. I'm like, that doesn't exist. I think we're signing up for exploration in perpetuity. That's a new muscle for most leaders. So I'm like, that's a fun area to play. So I think as a challenge, the reason I think this is probably going to be the hardest challenge is it impacts your people, like your human capital. It impacts your ways of working, right? Your operating model, your rhythm, your cadence of how you work, and it impacts your technology stack. And if you look at the last three transformations, they were one of those three, right? Everyone did a culture transformation at some point in the last 20 years. Everyone did an agile or lean or something transformation, and then everyone's done a digital transformation. So they've done them separately, and you're like, well. So this AI one, it doesn't sit in a function or a department. It's pervasive in the world. And that conceptually is hard for a lot of people. There's a fascinating thing right now that's really got me intrigued. I'm not excited yet, but intrigued. The startup, scale-ups, mid-sized companies that I'm working with are adapting infinitely faster than the 100, 150-year-old, 50,000 person employee, right? And so I had two conversations 2 days apart recently. I had a CEO of a fintech startup, and he's like, here's where we've rolled out agents, here's what we're doing. Here, like, he explained everything that they've already done. And I'm like, wow.
Yes.
Like, you're not hype cycle, you're doing it. Next day, CTO of a giant bank, who's like, we're thinking about maybe looking at possibly investigating the opportunity around, and you're like, wow, you have caveated the hell out of that. So what you're saying is in 18 months, you might play with Gemini, or you might play with any AI tool from any of your vendors. I'm like, really? You know people are already doing it. So the sheer amount of change that those giant organizations have to go through, they have not contemplated that. And they don't have that muscle, if we're being deadly honest, right? They've not got that adaptability. So I don't know how that's going to change the leaderboard of companies if those SMBs, those scale-ups suddenly get a head start because they're way more adaptable. And I think I've shared with a few people, I think adaptability and learning velocity are the superpower of future businesses, right? The ability to take an insight and apply it is the superpower, not how many insights you get or how efficient your machine is, but how quickly your machine can pivot.
And thinking about that situation, when organizations don't have that velocity, how do we start to help people fall in love with its adaptability? But there's this interesting thing that I have a lot of friends that are teachers, high school teachers, and they're describing this phenomenon of AI is like, it's like Google, but it actually tells me the answer. It just doesn't give me like a range of answers.
Yeah.
It tells me the answer. And they're developing this reflex of, it's not a collaborator. It's the answer book, but it's a dynamic answer book. So this is fantastic. I don't even have to think. Yeah. And some of the best talks I've heard is like, no, actually, it's not that at all. The most wonderful thing about this technology is the collaboration. Is the partnership, because you are the director, like you are the genius.
Yeah, we've all become orchestrators, Mike. Like if we imagine our role now is orchestrator,
yes,
and we got the superpower at your fingertips, you're like, oh, that's a very different mindset than we've been trained on.
Yes, and so I don't know how. Like, what's your hunch on how we start helping people? Because some people don't like being adaptable, so that's a big learning curve. Some of us enjoy it. What do you think about how we help people, like, or what is the skill that we need to? I think
you've talked about in the last hour, mate. It all comes into play. So if you think about it, like it's a silly example, but let's say I write a long prose document and I want to make it more brief and more concise, and I put that into any AI tool and it gives me the answer back. Option one, I copy that answer and I send it to you because I know you like brevity. Brilliant. In that example, I have learned nothing.
Yeah.
Or in fact, what I have learned is I can still write long prose stuff that I've always written. I'm not good at brevity. And that's not the learning curve that me and you are after here. If I look at what the AI did and I'm like, it shortened my opening sentences. It changed a little bit the language. The paragraphs are shorter, feel snappier. I'm going to try and get closer to that next time. Then the AI is not my worker, it's my teacher. And you're like, right? And then you opt for that to go, I'm actually going to ask you a question. Like, here's the type of persona I think I'm dealing with. And here's the message I'm trying to convey. Is there a better way or another way of doing this? And we start to engage in a two-way conversation. You're like, so now the content is improving. I'm getting more context and I'm learning. And you're like, oh my God, that's the nirvana I think that we all feel like we want. But let's not underestimate the mindset shift that for my entire career, like I started working in the year 2000, so 25 years, I've been the operator of the keys. I'm the master, the keys are the servant. And I watch people using any form of Gen AI right now, and I'm like, stop Googling, right? So not what is the capital of France, but think more as this conversation, this exploration, this what might be, how could we, and go random at the edges, but play with it. And so I think when you see people do that, you suddenly realize that you can harness this potential. And we're seeing that in corporates there's a whole lot of organizations we're working with that have rolled out our AI tool, and you're seeing the ones go, grab it, explore, contract, explore, and you're creating a wonderful things. And you see others go, here's the problem I've had for the last 5 years. I'm going to jam AI into it. And you're like, please don't. Like, please don't make anyone more productive and don't make anyone more efficient. Just, I really want you to ask yourself the question, are you even doing the right things? And that's this step that's missing, right? You talked about it before, like your curiosity is, what might we do with this? But what most leaders are doing is, here's the problem I've got, and I'm going to fudge AI into it to make it faster. And you're like, well, you're just doing stupid things faster. So please don't. Like, that's going to kill rainforests. So just like, calm down. If you were to reimagine the world in your business model, where would you layer AI agents in? And what does that look like for the human workforce and the outcomes we achieve together? That's a great conversation, but it's a different approach. There's a company I'm working with right now. We did a whole lot of workshops with them. One of the outcomes was they went back to their last 3 years worth of business cases where the net present value was 0 or negative. So they'd all got declined.
Yes.
And they laid on AI and said, if the ROI conversation was tricky because there was a large amount of human cost, and agentic AI is marginal cost of 0, which of these business cases would we now approve? Right? And about half of them got approved, and they've put them into place. That has not made anyone more efficient or anyone more productive, but it has opened a new addressable market that they previously said no to because the ROI wasn't there, because there was too many humans in the loop. They can now address that market. And you're like, no, when I share that with execs, they're like, the genuine freeze. They're like, I can't even contemplate that. And I'm like, because you're thinking about the problem you have and you're jamming in. This is just, give yourself a hot minute. Just you're a really smart, experienced, seasoned leader. Just give yourself a hot minute. Just pause and go, if we'd had this 3 years ago, what would I have done differently? Right? And it's the same for all technology change. Just like, pause. If I had this superpower right now, how would I change what we do and why we do it? Not, here's a problem I've got and I'm just going to jam it in.
So what's the thing that when you get an opportunity to speak, you're feeling most in need of getting up on the soapbox and making sure people are aware of?
There's a common thread of things in there, but it's anything where the headline will be anything where we have an old approach to a new problem. So the minute someone says like, blah, 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 productivity, I'm like, oh, that's a terrible measure from the 1920s and irrelevant right now. When everyone goes, I need my business to be more efficient, I'm like, no, you don't. Oh, God, you can be efficient and doing the wrong thing. You're going to be stupid. Like, you need to be more effective. Like, I want to help people see the other way and the better way. And I find what's happening right now, I'm going to blame any book that's been written about measurement, right, is my kind of error, right? Where they're like, and most things that I care about in life can't be measured. The things that I really care about in life, there isn't a NPS score, right? There isn't a stat. There isn't a viewership or a reach or an eyeballs, right? And I think corporates and businesses as a whole have got obsessed with what they can measure. Yeah. And because of that, we end up measuring efficiency. We end up measuring productivity, even though we can't measure that. And I'm like, if you were to pause, do you actually care about those things? Like, did they actually really make a difference? Like, every single article I read right now is, if I roll out this version of AI, I'm going to be 30% more productive. I'm like, cool, what impact does that have? Are you faster time to value? So you're getting more customers delighted, so more revenue? And they're like, no. I'm like, cool, are you learning velocity? You're adapting quicker, you feel more relevant? No, we're just more productive. I'm like, but where is that manifesting? This stupid phrase you're using, what's actually happening? And so I get quite archy at the throwaway statements around measures and impact that I think are archaic. And I think as a society in 2025, when we've got a mental health epidemic and whatever else, we can do better than measuring productivity. Like, we've got to be smarter to have a balanced scorecard view of, if I make you and your team 30% more productive, but you're all burnt out, that's not a win, right? So we've got to look at the trade-offs a lot better.
How close to burnout have you ever been, or have you had that part of your story?
Several times. I would say I don't think I ever actually have. I've been pretty close. Last year, me and my wife took on everything. So we had, at the time, 18-month-old twins, living in a rental, doing a giant renovation, and we got married in the same year.
You started a podcast.
And trying to excel at work, and right. So you fit all those things in, and like, I got to the end of the year, and I was like, I'm happy to do nothing in 2025. Just survive, we'll be fine. And I think because I rely, and my wife's a nutritionist, so she readily reminds me of this. I rely so much on adrenaline to do what I do.
Yes.
The byproduct of that is when I stop, I have adrenal fatigue and my body just goes, no. Right. So when I'm on the stage or doing the workshop or in the airport, I'm like, pow, 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 pow. Right. And then you get back, you're like, yeah, guess what I did? Pow, 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 pow. And then you sit down, you're like, oh, and I said to you the other week, I'm in a fog. Like I was just in this fog because I'd just run on adrenaline doing events, flying around the world. And I genuinely love what I do. So it's really hard in that moment to ever pull back. But I do plan these moments to stop. And then I stop and I'm like, I think I might have taken on too much. And I'm like, how many times do I need to say that to course correct and manage that a bit better? And it's just one of my elements. I think I'm going to say fortunate. I'd say very fortunate. I've got a handful of really good friends who are confidants. One friend who's my best man at the wedding, most Saturdays, nearly every Saturday morning, we meet and we do a 13-kilometer walk and we just talk crap. But anything, like it's open slather, right? Yeah. And that's like our mental health walk. We started in the pandemic, we've kept it. But having guy friends just to talk openly to, become aware more recently that male mental health is a different beast to female mental health. And there's so many guys that I know that don't have an outlet to talk. And if they don't talk, they ruminate in their head. And I think that's when mental health takes a downward spiral. So I think I've had moments where I've been close and I've either pulled back or managed it, but it's something I've become more and more aware of. And it's not something I want to be solving certainly with the kids. I don't want to break down and then have to recover. I'm always going to push the boundaries. Like I accept who I am, but I don't want to ever have a detrimental effect on them.
I can really relate to that phenomenon of I don't know how tired I am until I stop. And it sounds so weird saying it out loud because it's kind of like, of course you do. And you're like, but it is when those hormones are surging, they sustain you in this way that you're just like, I'm ready. Let's just keep going. But it's not all take because you are having fun.
Oh, I love it. This is the thing.
It is energizing. And so it's so tricky that you will be, that adrenal burnout is happening, but it's also not entirely happening. And so it just fall into
it's a true hamster wheel because when I'm in that zone and I'm like, oh, there's the audience and there's the work and there's other things, like it's self-fulfilling and I get energy from it and I'm happier, like I'm joyful, I'm more positive. And it's not, I know I can't always do that, but I'm like, there is that moment. And then you stop and you're like, oh. And then what I said to my wife, actually, when we got married, I was like, what I don't want to happen is energetic, vibrant me's on stage and moody, foggy me's at home, right? That's not fair. Like, you can't be the mothership where I dock to recharge. And I'm like, I'm better now. See you later. That's not what it works. So you still need to get, a great part of me to be a good partner and a good dad, right? So we've worked on that over the last year to make sure that balance is there. But that takes a lot of work.
And it's like unlearning a crazy amount of stuff because that data-driven corporate culture is constantly doing the opposite of trying to create balance.
You just touched on something that I want to just double click on because I think it's important.
Yeah.
The time zone difference between corporate Dom and dad Dom, and it's the same for corporate Mike versus home Mike. If I don't invest in a thing in work this week and it fails because I didn't invest in it, I get punished for that this quarter, right?
Yes.
So it's an immediate hit. If I don't invest in my kids this week, I will not know that for years.
This is good, Dom.
But when I find it out, I will never forgive myself. Whereas, you know what? If I screw up at work, I'm like, I'm not going to get fired. I can't be perfect at everything. Like, it's weird how the immediate gratification of work makes it feel heightened, but actually you're like, the thing I'm really going to be measured on, right, when my days are ending, isn't that KPI for that quarter.
No.
It's, was I a good dad and a good parent and a good husband, right? It's all those things. And you're like, so like, how have we got our investments, right? It's not always time investment. I've come to realize it's energy investment, not time.
It's especially hard when you love what you do.
Yeah.
And I think you've just sparked an idea for me of there is another bucket. So it's not just these buckets that I pour into. I think something that I need to acknowledge more is that what I do at work is a key way that I express who I am.
Yeah. That's you, like, your element. That's you being you.
Exactly. And not everybody has that privilege of Friday night at the pub.
Yeah.
That is not people trying to say, hey, during the week, I became me. I got to express more of me.
They're not doing that. They're not having epiphanies.
But for some of us, luck into it. Some of us have to be brave and make a bunch of changes to get closer to the center. But I think for me, I'm just recognizing that I do also need to go, okay, no, work isn't just work. It is also this place where I get to express.
Yeah.
Like, I want to say like vocation, like who am I? And like, how, like, and it's a vocation doesn't have to be work, but sometimes a lot of it is worked out in this space and place.
Those things are way more connected than we ever give themselves credit. I had the chat, I think it was just after we had the kids with my wife, and I was like, you know what, I could probably take a domestic job in Australia, earn a decent salary, I'll be around more, but traveling less. And she's like, where would you work? And I rattled off a few companies, and she's like, would you be happy there? And I was like, no, but like, if that meant I could be around for you and the kids. And she's like, I don't want you around more if you're unhappy.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? And she's like, the two things are connected. Like, let's accept you have to travel for work. Like, it's not ideal, but you do. But when you do, you come back and you're in the zone because you've got to do the thing that you love doing. That's the dad that we want around. The one that's like buoyant and full of life and joy and like, what can we do? Not it's 9 o'clock, I've got to clock in and go and sit at my desk and do my day's work. Because she's like, the money's not going to make us happier. So if you're genuinely not feeling that you're getting to be that true self, like you just expressed there, and you're not expressing that, that's not a spiral any of us want to be in, if we don't have to be. And some people have to be. That's like, keep a roof over your head, brother. I'm fortunate enough where I don't have to, so I get to make that active choice.
Oh man, I love that. Okay, I think that's us. Thank you, Dom.
Awesome. Mate,
it's been great to be with you. Maybe one day I'll get to have you back on and we'll get to do round 2. There's
lots more to unpack, mate. If you're ever in Sydney, give me a shout. We'll grab a couple or a beer.
I'd love that.
Awesome.
Thank you, Dom.
Cheers, mate. Thank you. Have a good day.
And that wraps up this episode of Shapeshifters. Thanks so much for being with us. We really want this to become a two-way conversation, so we would love for you to send in any questions or comments that this episode has prompted. You can do that by emailing shapeshifters@makeshapes.com, or if you're listening on Spotify, you can drop it into the comments section. We'll be incorporating these questions and comments into future episodes. Remember, if you want to stay up to date with the podcast, go to the Shapeshifters website, link in the description, and sign up to our community. I'm grateful for all of you. This is a real joy for me to get to do this, so thank you for your support. Until next time, I'm Mike Kurian, and this is Shapeshifters.